Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Full Moon Scarecrow. And I'm sipping on some spiced cinnamon tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel and that you also check out my Patreon page where you can find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, Mars black, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, burnt sienna, which I like to call rust, green oxide, raw sienna, which I'll call yellow, chrome orange, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 1 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 5 round synthetic brush, and I'll refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you could download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. All right, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to paint our sky and our ground. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to use are blue, white, green, rust, and yellow. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a nice bright blue sky that's really bright at the top, and it's going to fade down to a little bit lighter of a shade as it comes down towards the horizon line. And then on the ground we're going to do nice autumn colors with dark green and rust and yellow to make it look like perhaps our scarecrow is in a field somewhere with dried kind of grass on the ground. So I'm going to start by making myself a light blue color to start the sky with. So this is the color, my custom color that I'm going to be starting with. How I got there was I used my cobalt blue and white and then just spun them together. The reason why I'm starting with it a little bit lighter than my cobalt blue is just so I don't have it too dark or too streaky as I come down, because I want it to go pretty light as it comes down the sky. So starting with kind of a mid light tone in the blue will help it get lighter in a more smooth fashion than just starting with the cobalt blue. So I have my custom blue on my brush. Let me just move my palette here. I'm going to first mark off how far down I want my sky to go. So I'm going to bring my sky down about 3/4 of the way down my canvas. So you can kind of eyeball your halfway point of your canvas left on the side, and then go about halfway between that and the bottom of your canvas. Just give yourself a little tiny marker and then do the same thing on the other side. This will just prevent you from going farther than that with your sky. So I've got my custom blue on my brush, and I'm just going to go back and forth, left to right. For me, I kind of like to do almost like a crisscross type of motion. This helps me to kind of disguise brush marks. It'll help me to make the sky look a little bit more fluffy with maybe some soft clouds floating by. So this helps me in that manner. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up white plus my light blue. So I have white plus my light blue, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring that down my canvas. You could certainly be doing a circular type of brush stroke if you want it to look like there's more clouds in the sky. You could certainly approach it that way. It's going to be up to you how you want this sky to look. Now I'm picking up white with my dirty brush. And what's going to happen is my sky is getting lighter and lighter as it comes down that sky or down towards that horizon line. Still just picking up white, and I'm going to continue to pick up white as I come down to the where I have marked my horizon line with my dirty brush. So it just continues to get lighter and lighter as it comes down towards here. And if I want a little bit more blue, I still have some blue in my bristles, so I can just kind of push my brush a little bit harder and I'll get some of that blue to release itself from my brush. If I want it lighter, I just use the tip of my brush, and that'll allow me to just use those lighter tones from the white. If I wanted there to be little clouds, I could certainly just pick up a little bit of white, go back and just put in a couple of little fluffy areas. But I think I'm going to go for a almost gradient type of sky with just a little bit of the essence of perhaps some clouds floating by, so that'll be those little variations in tones. And then I just kind of blend it as much as I want to blend it. You could even do a second coat on it, which would mean you could just let it dry and then come back and do a second coat. But I think I'm gonna probably just roll with this the way that it's looking, because I think it looks pretty cool. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wash and dry my brush in order to put my ground on. So I'm just making sure I got this blended the way that I want. It's looking pretty good. I think that's pretty good. So I'm gonna wash and dry my large brush, and I'm gonna attack the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom of my ground, and I'm going to work my way up to my horizon line. When I get to my horizon line, even if it's still wet, that's okay, because I want to bump into it and make it look like it's a little out of focus. So I'm going to start with green and rust on my brush at the same time. So about equal parts of green and rust, and I'm going to be using this dotting or stippling type of technique down at the bottom and through here. You can use, if you want one color to be stronger than the other, feel free to incorporate whatever value that you want with that, or whatever, tone that you want, if you want it more green or more rust. So once I've got that bottom area, what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to pick up rust, and I'm going to get this rust color to kind of transition as it's going up towards my horizon line. Without washing my brush, what's going to happen is these two colors are going to blend in together, and because I'm using this dotting type of a brush stroke, it's allowing me to give it this real nice, natural, almost grass-like texture. Now what I'm going to do without washing my brush is I'm going to pick up my yellow. So I have yellow and the remnants of my burnt sienna on my brush. I'm starting on the outside edges in through here, so it kind of almost gets lighter and lighter as it goes towards the center of that ground area. So this was the yellow plus whatever remnants of the burnt sienna that I had on my brush. And then once I get this all done, or all the area covered, I'm going to pick up a little bit of white to just soften that top edge of it. So this is good in through here, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, we're going to have lots of like corn stalks and stuff around the edges. So having it uneven makes it look a little more natural. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of white on my dirty brush, and I'm just going to kind of tap the edges of this grassy area and make it kind of go out of focus as it's going up into that horizon line. This is going to give you just that nice effect of it having a little bit more depth within the painting. I'm going to bring it up these sides just a little bit. We're going to again have our corn stalks and stuff, but this will just start our process. And then once you've got this done, you can put your large brush away, because we're going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw an outline of our scarecrow with our chalk. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that you'd like. I just tend to like to use my chalk because I can erase it very easily. So I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So you can, take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry. Or you can do as I did and just pull out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you through a series of markers and basic shapes so we can have outlines of shapes that we'll be able to utilize during the painting and process. I'm not going for any fine-tuned detail here. We just need some basic shapes to get us started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start with an oval type of a section that's going to represent the rear end of our cute Scarecrow. We're gonna have, he's gonna be leaning over. Of course, I'm assuming that it's a he. It certainly could be a she. This Scarecrow is gonna be leaning over and kind of looking at the viewer over here. So we're gonna see its rear end over in this vicinity. So if you find yourself the center of your canvas, top to bottom, left to right, for me, that's about right here. I'm going to go over to the right from that about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. This is going to represent the right side of this oval type of a shape I'm going to be making. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the left of my center almost 1/4 of the way, or maybe a little bit further than 1/4 of the way. So if 1/4 of the way is about here, I'm a little bit to the left of that, somewhere in through here. And then I'm going to connect these two with an oval type of a shape, but I don't want it to be super high. So if you find yourself kind of the center here and then go up maybe about 3/4 of an inch and then down about 3/4 of an inch, that'll give you about 1.5 inches. And then you can just connect these with an oval type of a shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect oval. This is going to represent like the cloth from the shirt and the pants. So it can really be kind of oddly shaped if you wanted to. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my legs on. I'm not going to put any feet on right now. We're just going to do the legs because the feet are going to be made of straw or hay. I'm going to have, again, he's going to be kind of leaning over, so the legs are going to kind of go this way and this way. I'm going to, from this left-hand side, just kind of give myself a marker in through there. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to give myself another marker, but it's going to kind of go over to the right a little bit. I'm going to come down right about where my horizon line is. This is going to kind of represent, or just a little bit above it, represent where the knees are. So I can take this line in through here and just kind of bring it out in a semi-diagonal way. And just right before my horizon, I can kind of start to bring it down. I'm going to do a similar thing on this side, only it's going to be going in the opposite direction. So I'm going to bring it over in through here. And then right before I get to my horizon line, that'll represent where the back side of the knee is. I'm going to kind of split the difference of these two. That's going to be where the opening between the two legs is, and just give myself kind of a little top of a triangle in through there. Now I just need to bring these down to where I want the ankles to be. So I'm going to have my ankles about halfway between here and here. So somewhere in through here is going to give me the bottom of my pant leg. And now I can just kind of make the bottom of the pants whatever I want. If you want it to splay out, make it splay out. If you want it to be narrow, make it narrow. However you'd like to do that is totally fine. I'm going to make mine with a little bit of kind of a little bit of a shape to it, not super straight lines. I'm going to do the same thing over here. This one I'm going to bring maybe in this vicinity, and then of course I can bring this up like this. This knee is probably you know somewhere, yeah, it would be right about there. That works for me. So you can just bend that a little bit if you need to. Actually, I don't need to do that. That's fine. And then I'm going to just connect this to here. So this will give us the pants like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the torso on. So it's kind of oddly shaped because he's leaning over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up from this edge of my oval, and I'm going to bring it up about almost halfway between here and the top of my canvas. So somewhere about here. This is really probably about the halfway, so I'm just a touch below that. That'll be the top of the back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the right of that about until I'm maybe about 4 inches away from the edge of my canvas, somewhere in through here. This is going to represent like the shoulder area. For simplicity purposes, I'm going to connect here to here, and then we'll put the forearm on, or the bottom part of the arm, the forearm in a minute. So I'm just going to connect that to that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the rest of this arm. So this is going to represent the top of the back. This will be your shoulder. And this is the bicep area. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a curved line like this. This is going to be my elbow. And I'm going to bring this down to here. I'm going to show you what I just did so you can have a better visual. I'm going to take my small brush with a little bit of water on it. I'm going to erase this guideline here. So we just made the arm, the right arm of our scarecrow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the back. I'm going to have the back coming out this hip in through here. I'm going to connect this mark to here to here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to bring it up like this. This is the side of the back. And then right when I'm at about the same height as here, that's when I'm going to start to curve it and then just bring it in through there. So that'll be the back. And now we need to make another elbow of the other arm. So somewhere in through here, I'm just going to bring this out in a kind of a pointy line to emulate that over on the other side. I don't need this hand or even the bottom of the shirt because it's going to be kind of hidden behind this whole area. Now I'm going to make a pumpkin head. So he's going to be looking at us. His head's going to be kind of tipped. So I'm going to start in through here. The edge of it's going to be there. And I'm going to bring it, I would say, somewhere up into this vicinity. So I'm just going to make myself a fun kind of oval type of a shape. Now I'm going to put his hat on. So I'm going to have a big, huge floppy hat. You can have any kind of hat that you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it so we kind of see part of the underside of it. I'm going to take from here and here. This is going to be the bottom of the underside. I'm going to bring it out to the right. And then when I bring it back in through this direction, I'm going to bring it in, overlap that head a little bit. So something like this. You can have it as ripply as you want. And then I'm going to bring it way out over into here. Once I've got that, that kind of represents the rim of the hat. Now I can make whatever kind of shape that I want at the top. So I'm just going to have some fun and make myself kind of this, I don't know, square farm type of hat on the top. And then what I'm going to do, just so you can see again what we did here, I'm going to erase this guideline with a little bit of water in through here. And then that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your outline done, you can make any little adjustments that you want. Put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for our scarecrow. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are green, orange, black, and white. If I use any other colors, I'll let you know. So I'm going to be doing base coats on the whole thing. I'm going to do the rear end pumpkins and the head pumpkin will all be with a base coat of orange. I'm totally not going to be able to keep a straight face this whole time, especially when we're painting pumpkin butt. But I'll try. I'll try and be an adult here. So orange for those. Then I'm going to do green for the hat. I'm going to do gray for the shirt and navy blue or dark blue for the jeans. So I'm going to start with my pumpkin areas. So I just picked up orange and I'm just going to paint a coat of orange in this section. We will be making it look more pumpkin-esque throughout the process, but right now I'm really just looking to get a base coat on here, and so it may end up being a little streaky. You might be able to see your brush marks. Don't worry about that at this point. We will make all of that go away. I'm going to do the same thing on the head. Now I know that I'm painting on top of a blue background, and up in this area my blue background is darker than it is down here. So my orange may appear to be darker underneath this hat or on the head, which I'm okay with, for one, because the head to me seems like it's kind of underneath the hat anyways. But as we build our colors on the pumpkin, we'll be able to lighten them up with our highlights and stuff. So if yours is too dark for your liking, you can certainly layer that orange on a couple times, or you could conversely paint this area white and then paint orange on top of it, and that'll give you that nice bright orange. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush now, And I'm going to paint the hat with green. When I do my hat, I'm not, again, doing anything fancy here. You can certainly reshape it if you want to. If you want to leave some of your chalk mark visible to help you through the painting process so you don't make the hat larger, you can certainly do that. But I might, in most areas, I'll just paint right over my chalk mark. But if I have any chalk mark visible later, I will erase it with a little bit of water. As you are coming up to the pumpkin part, you can certainly just bring that green right up to the orange. And if the orange is still wet, just paint it. It's okay if they blend in with each other a little bit because, again, we've got lots of steps to go. So don't worry about any accidental premature blending. We can certainly make all kinds of corrections and stuff during the painting process. And I'm just going to go all the way out to my chalk mark. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. And I'm going to make a couple of custom colors for the clothing. So once I've got this done, I'm going to wash, and of course you could use a smaller brush too. If you're going in these smaller areas and this size brush, oops, my hat just grew. This size brush doesn't work for you, that's okay. You can just use a smaller brush if you want to. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to wash and dry my brush now, and I'm going to make a couple of custom colors. So I'm going to do a dark blue for my pants and a gray color for my shirt. I have pre-mixed my custom colors so you can see where I'm headed. This is the dark blue that I'm going for. So I used a lot of my cobalt blue and then just a little tiny bit of black and a little tiny bit of white. So what I'm doing is I darkened it with the black, and then I use a little bit of white to give it almost like a gray, not grayish, but I kind of desaturated the blue a little bit, so it's more of like a denim type of blue as opposed to a vibrant blue like the cobalt blue. So now I'm just going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to make my custom gray while we're here. So this is the custom gray. How I got to that was just black and white. About, let's see, about equal parts of both. So black and white will give me this nice gray color. So once you've got your custom tones, I'm going to go for my shirt first since I have the gray on my brush. The only thing tricky about this is I want to leave a little bit of a separation between the arms and the back. So that way, as I am painting in these, these areas, I won't get lost. I can bring this shirt just around my pumpkin butt a little bit. I'm going to bring this right up to my pumpkin in through here. And then as I reach this arm and this arm, I'm going to leave a little bit of my chalk mark showing the separation between my back and my arm. So again, that way, as I go to paint the details later, I will not get confused as to what part is what. So that's looking pretty good. Let me just make sure that I get all the way in through there. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this arm over here. And you can see I'm bringing it right to and even overlapping that pumpkin a little bit. So that way I'll have a nice clean transition with this arm being in front of the head and not having any unpainted area between the two. And then I'm just going to kind of bring this down this edge in through here. And then you can really, as you're coming down the clothing, I mean, this is a Scarecrow. So the clothing can really be anything you want. If you want to bump out a little wrist area where the cuff of the sleeve is, feel free to do that. As I come over this pumpkin butt, I'm definitely going to cover that up a little bit. Maybe bring this sleeve out a little bit in through there. It's completely up to you how you want to shape those kind of details to it. They don't have to be exactly as mine. Maybe yours is wearing a really nice knitted sweater or a flannel shirt. You can just have fun with it. As long as you kind of got the elbows in a similar spot and the arm doesn't hang way too far. Well, it doesn't matter. It's a Scarecrow. They can be any shape you want. They do not have to be anatomically accurate to a human being. So you just have fun and make it whatever you want it to be. And then once I've got this in here, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my, I have a little rough throat right now. I need to drink some more tea in a little bit. I'm going to put my dark blue for the pants. And again, nothing fancy here. Just want to bring it right up to my pumpkin butt. And I can, you know, make it into whatever shape I want. You can start like curving it as if it's going around those pumpkins. The dark color this dark blue will look a little bit streaky as you're painting it on, just because it is so dark, and that background is going to be probably a little visible in some areas behind it. Again, don't be concerned about that right now, because we're going to have lots of steps and details that are going to go on top of this. And then as I'm coming down in through here, I'm going to just bring it all the way to my chalk mark. And if you're having difficulty having those edges nice and clean, it just means that you probably need a little bit more paint on your brush in order to get the clean edges. Sometimes when we're doing this in a fast way, the edges look a little dry and they might skip a little bit. So either just put more paint on your brush, or you can use a little bit of liquid medium on your brush, or water, thin out your paint a little bit. That'll get those clean edges for you. When I'm doing clothing, I do like to have kind of these little lumps and bumps in the clothing as I go along, so that'll look like there's little ripples or wrinkles in the clothing. So as I'm going through this, if I feel that my line is too straight, I might buckle it out a little bit in order to make it look a little bit more natural, especially if it's, you know, on a scarecrow. I don't think the clothing would be really perfectly pressed and straight, but again, make yours into whatever you want. And then once I've got this done, we're going to use, we're going to use this same brush for the next step, just going right around this little wrist area in through here. So once you've got this done, you can wash, and as I'm just getting this one last little line, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint corn stalks, and we're going to finish our grassy stuff on the ground. Grassy stuff. We'll finish the ground. I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, green, brown, rust, yellow, and white. So all my colors except for blue and orange. What I'm going to do is I want to just have some nice grassy texture down at the bottom and have it kind of morph into these nice corn stalks along the sides. Now, keep in mind, this is a fun type of design here. So I'm not going for photorealism. I'm just going for something that's nice and representational of some corn stalks. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to finish up my grass, and then I'm going to start building my corn stalks from the dark to the light. So I'll be using brown kind of as a base coat, brown and yellow as a base coat for them, with a little bit of burnt sienna, and then I'll cap it off with some nice yellow and white highlights on the end. So I'm going to start down at the bottom. I'm going to use a little bit of black, brown, and green on my brush at the same time. So I have 3 colors on my brush. What I'm really looking to do right now is just kind of give myself almost the illusion of some darker grass down at the bottom, just so I can kind of make this look like we're almost walking into this little hay or corn field, wherever this little cute scarecrow is residing, and just making sure that this is fully executed. Now I'm going to pick up a little bit of green and rust on my dirty brush, so I'm just kind of transitioning up with these little almost more in focus kind of pieces of grass, and just a little bit more of a detailed transition than just the dotting that we did with the stippling effect in the beginning. So now that I've got that, I'm going to pick up brown and rust on my dirty brush, and I'm going to start pulling some of these pieces up into this longer formation on the sides. This right hand side, I don't want to pull up too high because my scarecrow is the focal point, so I'm just kind of bringing a few of these up in through here. Think of it at this point as just kind of long grass type of pieces. So again, brown and burnt sienna are on my brush right now. And if you want to have a more solid line and less of it kind of skipping, you can use a little bit of water or liquid medium on your brush. That's going to help you to get your paint to kind of sink into the crevices of the canvas, or the little pockets of the canvas. And again, I'm just doing my first layer here, so I'm not really going in for any fine-tuned detail. As I get up towards the top of the cornstalk, I know that it has these little kind of frayed, almost, I think they're called like little pieces of silk or something up at the top. So I just made some little tinier pieces up towards there. And again, right now, just brown and burnt sienna on my brush. I might put a little bit of black in here as well in a second, but I just want these to be nice and representational. That's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black just so I can get little tiny, a couple little darker pieces in through here. I don't want to go a lot with the black, just giving myself little shadows and stuff in between these pieces so they look a little bit more natural. That's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to pick up yellow. Just yellow. I was going to go yellow and white, but I think I'm going to start with just yellow right now. So I've got yellow on my brush, and I'm just kind of introducing more of these pieces in through here. I'm going to start in a second giving myself more representational of the ears of corn, but right now just kind of getting this grassy, the stalk type of stuff on here first, and then I'll introduce the little ears of corn. I think that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to pick up yellow and white. And what I'm going to do with my yellow and white is I'm going to give the representation of the ears of corn. So for me, when I'm looking at kind of a bunch of the corn stalks, especially when they're kind of dried out and nearing the end of the season, the ear of corn kind of like flops over, something like that. So I'm just going to give myself the representation of these little kind of ears of corn just kind of leaning over, and I'm just doing that with a little bit of yellow and white. So you can do it in the middle, you can do it, you know, coming up, whatever direction works for you. I'm just taking my brush and kind of pushing it so I get almost like this curved oval type of a shape. You can put it in any kind of direction that you want. And if you run through some wet paint like I am, some of your background colors, just roll with it. That's, you know, the beauty of this. You can just allow these colors to kind of work themselves into one another. And if you feel that you want more on here, feel free to put more. I'm just going to kind of, I'll probably put these on here, let it dry for a minute, see if if I've got as much as I want, maybe a couple little highlights up in through here with my yellow and white, and then that's looking pretty good. I feel like I've accomplished all I need to accomplish on this, so I'm gonna let it dry, see if I want to do any more, but I think that that's looking pretty good for now. So the next thing that we're gonna be doing is gonna be with we're gonna go with this medium brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish the hat. I'm using my small brush, even though I said I was going to use my medium brush. I changed my mind. I'm going to use my small brush to do this. The colors that I'm going to use are black, green, and white. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting some shadowy area underneath the hat. I'll put some strategic shadows on the base part of the hat to give it a little bit of form, and then we'll put some highlights on the rim and on the top of the hat to give it more form. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black paint on my brush. I'm going to create the underside of the hat. So I'm going to bring this black right up towards the head, towards my pumpkin head. I'm also going to bring it right up to where this little part of the rim kind of meets the hat in through here, and then I'm just going to give myself this real dark area underneath here. So I'm going to color it in black where it meets the head, and then I just kind of rub it out into the green. I'm going to give myself just this little soft edge as it meets kind of the bottom here, and then up towards this top area as well. Just wiped my brush off so I didn't have too much paint in through here. You could also pick up a little bit of green. We're going to be doing the rim in a minute, so that'll help me clean that edge up. But if you needed to, you could pick up a little bit of green to get that to blend a little bit better. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm going to stop somewhere where I feel that this would kind of dip down in this region, and then just ride this right along the edge of my pumpkin head, almost down towards the bottom. Bring this out in this direction. I'm leaving a little bit here, so that looks like the edge or the rim of the hat. And then I'm just going to color this in really nice and dark, and then get it to almost kind of fade into that green as it's reaching the edge of the hat in through here. And again, you could certainly pick up a little bit of green to help with that if you needed to. So that's looking pretty good for me. Actually, I'm going to pick up a little bit of green. I just picked up a little bit of green too. It's not blending all the way that I want it to, so I'm going to just pick up my green now to get it to do it. So I just picked up a little bit more of my, or a little bit of my green oxide just to get this to blend for me. So my painterly eye is happy. There we go. That looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm picking up a little bit more black, and I'm going to put a kind of a shadow above where the rim of the hat would be. So I'm going to go a little bit away from this edge, and I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow in through here. This is just going to help the viewer understand that the hat kind of dips down at, or dips in at the bottom of the hat where it meets the head. So something like this. I don't need to do a lot in through here, just a little bit to indicate that. Now I'm going to pick up green on my dirty brush to get this to blend up into the main area of the hat. I'm just going to continue to pick up green in order to finish getting this to blend up. So now that I've got that done, I do want a little bit of a shadow over on this right hand side of the hat, so it shows, because I have my light source is up above, so the right side of the hat to me would have a little bit more shadow on it, and this will help to show a little bit of contour to it as well, make it look like it's a little bit rounder. So, whoops, I just put my hand in wet cornstalk. So I just picked up a little bit of black. I'm going to put a little bit on this right hand side, and now I'm going to pick up green. So I have a little bit of black and green on my brush, and I'm going to give this little bit of a curved type of shadow going into the hat. So that's again going to show that curve of the head and of the hat, or of the hat, because the head's down here. So something like that. So now that I've got that on, I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to pick up green, and I'm going to do a second coat on all of the areas of the hat that I have not already hit with my shadow area. So this is ensuring that I have good coverage. I will be doing a highlight in a second, but this second coat of green, one, kind of re-wets this surface for me. So when I go to do my highlight, I'm gonna have a nice blend to my highlight, because this surface is gonna be a little bit kind of new and not so dried, because I have this little coat on here. I'm going to do the same thing up top. So I am putting my second coat on this whole top area in through here. And in a second, I will enhance the form with a little bit of a highlight. So that works out there. So now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm picking up green and white on my brush at the same time. And this is going to give me my little bit of a highlight on the edge of my rim. So this is green and white, and you can certainly blend it in a little bit if you like. Just kind of go back and forth a couple of times, and then I'm going to do the same thing up on the top of my hat in through here. So I've got mostly white with a little bit of green, and then I'm just going to kind of bring it out in the areas that I feel would be affected by the light, which is the top of it, and then what the bump that is closest to the viewer. So this is going to have a little bit of highlight in through here where it is closer to the viewer, and then let it dry. And if you want to amp up any of your highlights or shadows, feel free to do so. Sometimes as we're going through this process, it's tough to make a final determination when it's wet like this, if you're done or not. So letting it dry and seeing how it's gonna be affected that way sometimes helps out a lot. So I'm gonna let mine dry, and if there's any areas that I wanna amp up more, I will. But I will be using the same brush, my small brush, for the next step. So once you get this done, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our pumpkins. I'm gonna be using my small brush. The colors that I'm gonna use are black, brown, orange, yellow, and white. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place some strategic shadows and highlights. So my shadows on my pumpkin butt, sorry, are gonna go between my pumpkins and under my shirt in through here and maybe a little bit around here. So we will then have two pumpkins. And on my pumpkin head, I'll have some shadow down below here because that's the bottom side, as well as some underneath the hat. And then we'll add highlights to make the pumpkins look round, or like butt cheeks, or like butts, you know, two sides of the butt. So we'll put light area in through here, and then we'll have a light area in through here. So I'm going to start with very little bit of brown and black on my brush at the same time. So just a tiny bit of both. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where I want the separation between these two to go. So it's going to be about halfway. So somewhere in this vicinity. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of draw a line, and then I will make it go a little bit wider at the bottom and a little bit wider at the top. So I don't need it to do much. I don't need it to be super dark. Just a little hint of it is all we need. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit more brown and black, and I'm going to give myself a shadow underneath the shirt. So this is where you could kind of ripple the shirt a little bit if you wanted the edge of the shirt to look like it's got a little bit of movement, so it's not so straight across. You could certainly bring it down a little bit. You could also use a little bit of water or liquid medium on your brush. This will help you to get a soft edge where it meets the pumpkin itself. Or I use a lot of brown when I'm doing these kind of shadows because the brown to me is nice and transparent. So that will help me to kind of blend it in a little bit with the orange side of this shadow. But that's not necessary. But if you did want to do that, you could certainly do that. I'm going to bring a dark shadow kind of around this edge over here to maybe look like it's underneath the, you know, like we're seeing a little bit of underneath the shirt. And then I don't really need to do a shadow where the pumpkin meets the pants because I feel like, I mean, you could do a little bit if you wanted it to look like it's curved. You could, I just washed my brush and picked up a little bit of brown. You could certainly do a little bit of brown at the bottom, but I don't think you need much because of the angle that we're seeing this at. You could just put a little bit if you wanted to in through there. I'll come back in a second and do a highlight. That's looking good for the shadow for now. I'm going to go ahead and do my shadow on the head pumpkin. So again, black and brown are the colors that are on my brush. I'm going to put a little bit on this bottom side. I'm picking up a little bit of water right now in order to blend this up in the head region, the pumpkin region. I don't really need much here. Again, my orange is pretty dark, so if you felt that you did want some, you could certainly, I just picked up a little bit of brown. You could put a little bit down at this bottom area, but I wouldn't, you don't really need much at all. And then I'm going to put some underneath the hat. So this is black and brown underneath the hat, and I'm doing a pretty good shadow underneath here. So it's pretty heavy with my black, picking up a little bit of water on my brush right now in order to get this shadow to travel with a little bit of moisture, and then maybe just making sure that gap is closed off. So now that I've got my shadowy areas on, now I'm going to wash and dry my brush and put my highlights on my pumpkin. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. My highlights are going to come from orange, yellow, and white. So I'm going to start with a little bit of yellow and white on my brush, and I'm going to give myself these kind of curved type of brush stroke marks on the part that I want to pop out the most. I don't need it to be a ton of paint. This is just going to give me the illusion of it popping out a little bit. So a little bit of yellow and white is on my brush, and I'm going to take it. Think of this kind of like a basketball in a sense, where you have kind of that center line, and then every line to the right kind of goes in that curve, and every line to the left goes in this curve. And I don't, again, need it to be really a lot of paint. I'm just doing a little bit of paint right now so I can have these kind of light areas. I'm going to come back in a minute with some orange on it so we can get it to look a little bit more orange-esque, but this is giving me my highlight that I desire. I'm going to do the same thing on the head, as this is kind of resting and drying, so yellow and white. And again, this is kind of a larger area in through here, so I'm going to start with my kind of straight line there, and the pumpkin goes all the way down to here, so you don't want to curve everything into this shoulder. You got to imagine that you're curving it down towards this part, which would be the bottom. So if that helps you, honey, just keep your finger there, and that'll help you to kind of give yourself a more natural kind of curve to it, as opposed to just curving it right into that shoulder. So something like this, and on this right side, that's going to be a little bit darker, so I don't really need to do much over there. So now that I've got my bright area on, I'm going to go back and just accentuate all of this with a little bit of orange. So I've got this going on. I'm not going to wash my brush. I just picked up a little bit of orange, and I'm just going to use this if I need to. So you might, once you put that highlight on there, you might feel that yours looks great and you don't need to do anything else. But if you feel that it's not orange enough, just come back with your dirty brush and make sure that you've got all of your orange as you want it. I just bumped into my pants a little bit. I'm okay with that, because I know that I'm gonna have the edge of my pants that I need to finish later, and then I'm gonna do the same thing up here. Just put a little bit more orange on my brush, getting this to get as orange as I want. And because I've got that lighter layer underneath, that helps to elevate this orange into an even brighter tone. And then you can just keep repeating that. So if you want your orange to be brighter, just put more white, let it dry, and then you can bring this orange on top. And once you've got it all done, we are going to be using this same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish the shirt. I'm gonna be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are gray, black, and white. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be adding some strategic shadows and highlights in order to create form on our shirt and our body. I'm going to be adding little shadows on the bottom side of this arm, a little bit maybe in the crease where this arm meets the waist area, little shadow in through here on this bottom side of this arm, and then maybe we'll put some highlights on the top side of each one of these shapes, highlights on the edge of the shirt bottom part of it here, and maybe a little bit on the cuff or the sleeve. I'm going to start with a tiny bit of black and gray on my brush, so a little bit of black and gray on my brush. I'm going to put a tiny bit on the bottom side of this. I think I need more black. That's a little too cautious with the black. So a little bit more black on my brush will help me out here. So just a little bit on this underside, maybe up a little bit to show the crook of the elbow. I don't need much, just something that will give me a little bit of that bend in the arm, so this looks like it's got, you know, a structure to it or a form underneath it. So that looks pretty good. I don't need to do much there. I'm going to do the same little bit of an exercise in this area in through here. So black, I just picked up a little bit more of my gray, just bringing up a little bit. You can even bring up these kind of curved lines, which is going to help to show, again, the form of the body. This is now where you would start to close off any of these little visible guide or gaps that you left for your own painting purpose. So that looks good there. I'm going to add a little bit in through here. So black plus a little bit of my gray to get this shadow in through here. And again, you can always use a tiny bit of water or liquid medium to get that paint to sink into those little holes. So this is the inside of this arm in through here. Just going to give myself a little bit of a shadow in through there. I'm going to pick up some of my gray just to finish, make sure this side blends a little bit better. There we go, that works for me. And then I don't think I got shadow here. I don't really feel like I need much more shadow anywhere. Maybe just a touch behind this arm just to make sure that we've got, there we go, that looks good. So I'm going to wash it dry my brush. I'm going to put gray plus white on my brush. This is going to start the highlight process, and I want highlight on the top of this arm, on the top of my back, on the top of this arm, and then some in through here and here. And then I will make sure it blends in with the rest of the structure. So I've got gray and white on my brush. I'm going to just kind of make sure that I clean up my edge in through there, and then just put this in this top area. Again, this is the time where you get to close off the gaps. So gray and white, I'm going to close this gap off in through here, and you can certainly reshape things at this point too. This is the time where if you did, feel that you wanted your arm longer or wider, now's the time to go ahead and do that. So I'm using a combination of the gray and white still on my brush. I've got my elbow, maybe a little bit of highlight on this side of the arm just to show that it's got some form, or maybe there's some stuffing inside that Scarecrow shirt, something like this. And then maybe we put a little bit down in through here, so gray and white. Give myself a little bit of a highlight on this arm in through here, the little cuff of the sleeve. I think I want this a little bit lighter in through here, and you can keep elevating the lightness. So as you're going through this, if you feel that it's too dark or it's not giving you enough of a highlight, just pick up a little bit more white. Like I just picked up a little bit more white to get this elbow and this shoulder to be just a little bit lighter, and you can just keep making it lighter and lighter as it's nearing the top, or nearing that light source. So as you're going through this process, if it's not popping out enough, if this looked too flat, then you can just add a little bit more lightness to it. The lighter it is, the closer it's going to look to the viewer. So you can keep adding those little bits of highlights in order to get it to pop out a little bit more. I'm going to do the same process on the back. So I've got gray and white on my brush. I'm going to have this top area probably the lightest, so it looks like it's closest to the light. And then I'm just going to get this to fade down the back. The back is kind of, flat, or, it's got a lot facing the top of the sky, which is where I feel that the highlight is. So I'm going to have it pretty light in some areas. I feel like this needs to still be a little bit lighter. So I'll probably add a little bit more highlight to that in a minute. And then as I'm coming down the back of the shirt, it can kind of ride in little ripples if you wanted to, but what I'm doing, I just picked up more of my gray and white. I'm going to put this, the edge of my shirt on right now, so I can have that part done, and then I'll just get it to kind of blend in with the back area. As I'm doing these little ripples on the side, I don't have to have it all one solid color. It can kind of go light to dark to light. That'll indicate the little bumps and grooves in the cloth. So now that I've got that in there, I can just kind of get this to blend in up here. And again, doesn't have to be a perfect blend because there can be ripples in the shirt. I just want to make sure that I've got the whole thing colored in. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of gray plus white, and I'm going to go in for this top of this arm over in through here. And again, that's gray plus white. And then I'm going to get it to blend down this side of the arm like that. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white just to get this top part to go a little bit brighter for me, as well as in through here. I'm feeling like I just want those two to kind of get a little bit brighter because they're closest to the light source. That looks good. And then just get it to blend down a little bit more. And then again, I would let it dry. And if there's any adjusting that I want to do, I certainly will do that. And then we're going to use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your shirt done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our pants. I'm gonna use my small brush. The colors that I'm gonna use are my dark blue, black, white, and I might go into my cobalt blue a little bit, but if I do, I'll let you know. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, again, paint some strategic shadows and highlights to give these jeans some form. I want them to look like they're being pulled down, so I want them to look kind of saggy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the implication of some pockets way lower than they should be. I'm going to have my fabric kind of rippled in through here where the top of the pants would be, you know, a couple like ripples in through here, and then we'll have them just kind of, you know, sagging. And I'll put some shadows in where the knees are, and that'll make the legs look like they're bent. So I'm having this leg closer to us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush. And from this point in through here, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a shadow. So this is going to pull this leg up a little bit further into the butt region. And then I'm going to just kind of bring this up in like a little bit of a curved manner in through there. I'm going to shade this leg. So I'm taking this black and I'm shading it down. I'm picking up some of my dark blue right now to get this on my dirty brush to get this to blend down into the leg. So just with my dark blue and the remnants of the black on my brush, I'm getting this to blend down into this leg in through here. I've got my knee right here, so I have a little bit of that darkness still on my brush, so I can utilize it right here in the knee region. I'm picking up more of my dark blue so I can get this to fully blend out. I don't need it to be too disconnected or liney, so I'm just kind of blending it out with the remnants of the black and the dark blue. So that looks pretty good in through there for the start. I'm going to put a tiny bit more black on my brush to give myself the crease or the crook in this knee back here. So that's going to be somewhere in this vicinity. So I've got my black on my brush, and I'm going to do a light kind of sketcherly type of pull out of that black. Now without washing my brush, I'm picking up my dark blue. So again, kind of repeating what I did over here, but with a little bit less paint, just to get that dark area on and then blend it out into the neighboring dark blue. And I just keep picking up that dark blue. I think I'm picking up a little bit more black here too. Picking up that dark blue in order to get it to blend out into the main color of the pants. I'm going to repeat that process for a couple of the, for some pockets. So I'm picking up a tiny bit of black. I didn't wash my brush, so at this point I'm going to be using a combination of black and dark blue, just alternating back and forth to create these dark areas. I want a couple of little pockets, so I'm going to have just this, give myself a very, again, loose and sketcherly kind of outline for a saggy pocket or one that has been pulled down a little bit. I'm going to put one in through maybe here. So if this is kind of the center of the pants, that's a pocket. I'm going to put another pocket in through here. And we'd see more of this right hand one because I feel that it's closer to the viewer. So something like that works. Maybe pull this up just a little bit more. And again, hardly any paint on my brush, just kind of working these objects onto the pants. A little bit of black and my dark blue is where I'm staying right now with this color combination. I'm still just dark blue and black. I'm going to put a couple of creases up in through here to show the wrinkles in the pants as they're being kind of tugged down. So something like that. I'm going to pick up more of my dark blue just to kind of get a nice blend going in between my wrinkles of my clothing. So again, right now, just picking up dark blue on my dirty brush. I need to not necessarily worry about over in through here. I know that this is going to get covered by the hay coming out of that sleeve. So I don't need to do much, but I do want to just make sure that I'm closing off any gaps that might be, that might look unpainted. without worrying about too much detail. Still picking up a little bit of my black and my dark blue to go in for a couple of little shadows down in the cuff of the pants. So down in through here. And you can model your pants after whatever you want. This is just a nice kind of easy application for me, working with a pair of jeans that might have a lot of wrinkles in it, and maybe the cuffs of the pants have been rolled up or something. So you can, you know, again, he can be wearing pajamas, he can be wearing polka dotted clothing, whatever works for you is totally fine by me. And then I'm just making sure that that shadow kind of blends into the mid-tone color. And now that I've got my shadows placed where I want them, let me just make sure that I've got this closed off in through here. Now what I'm going to do, and my dark areas, now I'm just going to add some highlights. So I'm going to use my dark blue plus white on my brush at the same time. So dark blue plus white. I know I want a nice big highlight up in through here to indicate the top of the pants, and I need to clean up that edge because of I bumped into it a couple of times when I was painting the pumpkin butt. So I just picked up more white, get this to go a little bit brighter up and through here. I want these top wrinkles to be the brightest so they look like they are up closest to the sky. And then as I'm coming down, I'm going to pick up on my dirty brush more of my my dark blue. Because I had white on there, what's going to happen is this is going to get kind of darker and darker as I come down, but I still have a little bit of that white on there. So it allows me to add these little bits of highlights, maybe over here on the knee. I can put a little bit of that blue and white over on the knee, maybe a little bit more white, but brightest up here. And then as I'm traveling down that leg, I don't need to do much for these highlights. I just am going to add a little bit where I want it to maybe pop out a little bit. So this is my dark blue plus a touch of white is giving me the form of the leg. I'm going to put a little bit over here on the right hand side, and this can help to maybe add little wrinkles as you're coming down these legs. Maybe this cuff gets a little bit more brightness on it because it's maybe popping out a little bit more because of the roundness of that leg. So you can really use the light colors to tell the shape of the leg and also where the light source is and where any wrinkles are. So it serves multiple purposes when applied in various ways. Like right now I'm adding a little bit of the lightness so the leg looks like it kind of pops out a little bit in this calf area, maybe a little bit more here to make that part pop out a little bit more, and then just get it to kind of fade into the darker area. I'm going to put a little bit over here. Maybe this area pops out a little bit on the leg coming down in through here, and then just getting it to fade out like that, and then maybe a little bit on the cuff. And then again, I would, this looks a little unfinished in through here, and I would let it dry for a minute, and if there's any additional areas that I feel could use a little more brightness or darkness, I certainly will do that. But I'm thinking that this is looking pretty good. I've got all my pieces in place. I can see them all. I can see the cuffs of my pants. I can see my pockets are represented nicely. I've got my edge of my pants. You could put belt loops. You could customize it however you want. And then we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So once you get your jeans done, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint our face and the shadow on the ground. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black and brown. And you can really customize this, again, however you want. I'm going to start with my face with a little bit of black paint on my brush. I'm going to have just a little smile kind of coming behind the shoulder so he looks like he's a little curious and happy, and then just a couple of little triangle eyes and a triangle nose. So I'm going to start over, I would say maybe somewhere in through here, give myself a little kind of smile that goes behind my shoulder. You could make it in front, or I mean above the shoulder. Wherever you want to put it is up to you. Just if you're going to do it behind the shoulder, just make sure that they kind of one side lines up with the other side, so it makes a little bit of sense. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little tiny triangle nose somewhere in through here. You could, you know, model yours after a jack-o'-lantern that you've recently done, or, you know, one you're planning to do, whatever works for you. I'm going to do a couple of cute longer triangle eyes in here like this, and then I'm going to do a couple of little eyebrows. I'm going to have my eyebrows over in here, and again, you make yours whatever way you want. If you want your, I think I want this eye a little bigger, or this, I think I want them both a little bit bigger. So you can have fun with that. And then once I've got that done, I'm going to go down below and make myself a shadow. I'm going to load my brush with a little bit of black, brown, and water. So what I do, I loaded my brush with black and brown. I'm going to dip my brush in my water, and then I'm going to tap it off on my paper towel. I'm going to have my shadows just kind of coming down to the left. I know I'm going to have my big fluffy hay feet on here, so I don't need to do much other than make two diagonal marks coming from my feet. So I've got one in through here. I'm going to put more water on my brush. So I just put more water on my brush, and I'm going to rub this down in this diagonal way. So this way you can see through my paint, but you can, but it's still dark. So I'm in essence kind of putting what's referred to as a glaze on the paint, on my the base coat underneath, which is allowing you to see through that paint that I'm doing, and it makes it look like it's a shadow. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So black and brown and water, and then I'm going to put it right where the foot is going to be going, and then I'm just going to pull it back in this angle like this. You could use a bigger brush, you could use a different method, whatever works for you. But if you do this and it all goes black on you and you can't reverse that black and you're not happy with it, just let it dry. And what you can do is you can add some grass on top of it. So just know that this doesn't, you know, if this doesn't work out exactly as you had planned and you can't see any of the grass underneath it, you can certainly just put grass on top of it and it'll serve the same purpose. And then that's all I'm going to be doing for that. We're going to be using, use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the hay coming out, the feet, the hands, and the hat. I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, yellow, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in a progressive way where I'm going to start with the dark color and work my way to the light color. I'm going to have these really cute feet just kind of with the hay splaying out from underneath the pants. I'm going to do the same thing for the hands. I'm going to have it kind of splaying out from the wrist area. I'll have the implication over on this side with some pieces coming out on the other side. And then we're going to have some hay sticking out between the head and the hat. So somewhere from underneath that hat, just to make sure that, you know, all areas are filled in properly. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black and brown on my brush, just on the tip. I'm gonna, again, I'm doing from dark to light. So I'm starting with my dark areas, and I'm just thinking of how would this be, you know, kind of splaying out from underneath these pants. And I'm just kind of bringing it out in these almost little curved, maybe diagonal type of marks. I'm not overdoing it because I know in a short minute I'm going to be having lighter colors on top. These darker colors are just working as my base for this and to give a lot of dimension. So I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. And I'm just allowing myself to really have fun with it, adding some dark stuff right at the base where it's going to meet the jeans, as if maybe those are the more shadowed pieces. And I think the trick to this, if I don't want it to look too uniform, is to make sure some of the pieces go out in different directions. Again, black and brown is what's on my brush right now. I'm going to kind of scoot some from over in this little area in through here. And again, you can use any combination that you want to give these fun little marks. They can even have little bends in them. I mean, it's like straw hay, so they can really be coming out in all different directions. But again, this black and brown is going to provide a nice kind of dark initial base where it's coming out of the clothing, and it'll allow us to provide some really good dimension. And you saw me just flick that one out because every now and again I do like to have little long pieces. So I'm just going to kind of have fun with that and make some longer ones and some shorter ones. Now I'm going to go ahead up top and do the same thing coming out the hat. So I think I'm going to tackle this left side first. And again, I'm just thinking what's going to happen when it comes out of that hat. It can come out in different directions. Maybe, you know, pieces of straw have, you know, almost like little branches where they kind of have two pieces coming out of the same piece. I don't know if I said that right, but you can have little tiny ones coming out underneath that hat, even overlapping your pumpkin. I'm going to have, you know, maybe some real long ones kind of coming out in various directions. Yeah, that's looking cute. Sorry. Sometimes I really have fun doing these, you know, like light-hearted paintings where you can just enjoy the process and make whatever fun marks that you want, and whatever fun marks are making your paintbrush excited and making you, you know, maybe giggle a little bit as you're doing this, because, you know, I keep looking at a pumpkin butt, so I keep giggling a little bit while I'm doing this. You can bring some of these right off the canvas, so that's good. I think that's enough for my dark ones, and now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to go in for my light ones. So washing and drying my brush, I'm going to start with just my yellow paint, and I'm aware that this dark layer may not be dry yet, and I'm good with that because I like it when my colors intermingle with one another. So I have the yellow on my brush, and now I'm just kind of intermingling some of my yellow pieces. And when I do my white pieces in a minute, or yellow and white is where I'm going to go next, this will become brighter and brighter. I don't necessarily want to cover up all that darkness, and it doesn't all have to go right next to the edge of the clothing. If you keep the brighter stuff a little away, that's going to give it a little bit more dimension. You can kick some out in little curls if you want to, and then I just keep reloading my brush with the yellow. And when I get on top of these areas where the colors are similar right now, I know in a second I'm going to be incorporating white, so I don't have to worry about that at all, because that will help to rectify that. And again, just my yellow right now, putting in other pieces of straw. This is where I know that my paint is still wet here, and again, I'm working with that. I'm good with it. And again, I want some of these pieces to have a little bit different kind of direction to them, which will make them look, I think, a little bit more like authentic hay, straw type of substrate, whatever it's called. Piece of grass. Dried grass is kind of what hay is. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some in through here. And again, I'm keeping my darker stuff. I don't need to bring all the light stuff right up underneath that hat. This is just the lighter stuff I feel you would be able to see better as it's kind of coming out towards the, out from underneath the hat. So just these little fun pieces in through there. And now I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to pick up white on my dirty brush. So I do still have my yellow. Now I'm picking up white. And this is where I'm going to get these bright pieces to start to show up. And again, I'm not overdoing it. I'm not over painting, just allowing myself to get these little bright highlights on here so you can see this, this hay, and it's got these lighter notes to it. If you don't want to go all the way white like I am for these highlights, you could certainly pre-mix yourself a lighter yellow color with the yellow and the white. But because I am using my dirty brush with the white, it is providing me with this light yellow type of appearance on a lot of these pieces of the straw. So I like to do this kind of two-tone type of effect a lot of time, or one brush stroke type of application with multiple colors, because it's a kind of a nice easy way to add some dimension and these neat effects without doing a lot of work. So my yellow plus my white on my brush, and when you run out, just reload with both of those colors and just keep on keeping on. I feel like my brush is a little overloaded right now, like I'm not getting the thinner brush strokes that I want. So I'm going to just give my brush a good squeeze in my paper towel and reload. So what was happening was my brush was so overloaded that my bristles were kind of filling up and widening. So I just squeezed out some of that paint, and I'm going to reload with yellow and white so I can get a skinnier line. You could also use your small brush. So if you're going through this process and you want skinnier ones and you're not having success with this brush, you could certainly pick up your small brush and work with you could work littler pieces in with that brush as well. And that's gonna do it for that step. I had a little chalk there I wanted to get rid of. So we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your hay on here, you can keep adding, subtracting, whatever you want. You can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. Today I'm going to be using black paint, and I'm going to sign this in the bottom left-hand corner. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol, or whatever you'd like to sign your painting with is up to you, because it's your painting and you get to sign it however you'd like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a pretty comical Halloween image. I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.